Talk 360. Talk 360. For in-depth analysis on the week's news with Latif.
George Duke, I'm not going to let this song end because we've got to get straight into this show.
Good afternoon and how are you doing? My name is Eric Latif. You're on time for Talk 360 right here on 98.4 Capital FM. In the studio with me is the man who has, what should we say, apart from just peeling back the mask, he's the trending topic everywhere on Twitter, on social media. Everywhere you go, people are talking about this man, Miguna. This man, is he a whistleblower? Is he the Messiah? For some people are calling him Messiah. Others are calling him the alpha narcissist. And we just had Cabinet Minister Otieno Kajwang has called him a political hireling. Is he one? Who is he working for? We want him to tell us that. Good afternoon, Miguna. Welcome to the studio. Social media has been calling you Jogona.
Thank you, Eric.
You launched a book yesterday, Peeling Back the Mask, and of course it had been serialized in the last 1 week, and bits and pieces of it. We've read a couple of pages on the papers, but those of us who have bought the book and have started reading this book, I must tell you, it's unputdownable. It's good writing.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. And I must first of all ask you, when I see you mentioning some people here, especially when you say that so-and-so made a decision, you start giving their 3 names or 4 names, yet you give us your only 2 names. Raila Amolo Odinga, and then you start telling us.
Because he has 3 names and I have 2.
You only have those 2?
Yes.
So Miguna doesn't have a Patrick or
No.
Patrice or Shevchenko. It's just Miguna.
And that's not about my book.
This is it. Yeah, just setting the stage.
Yes.
Tell us the initial reaction to your book, especially when you first of all said that you're gonna write and release a book, and say a lot of what you encountered when you worked in the PM's office.
I think when I said that I was going to write a book, and let me go back a little bit, Eric. That is when I said publicly. I had thought about writing a book in January 2011. That's when I thought about writing a book, January 11. And I actually approached a few friends of mine, William Pike, Salim Lone, I think I approached even Yashpal Guy about ideas of getting a publisher, an international publisher, so that I could write my memoirs, the experiences, not just in the Prime Minister's office. But of course that would have anchored it, because that's where I was now working, and it is a high-profile office, and the experiences in the coalition have been turbulent.
Yeah.
So that's when I said that, and the records are very clear, and if you ask these people, they will tell you that we discussed these matters.
That's when you decided.
So anybody who says that I wrote this just because they say I was fired, I wasn't even fired, but that I wrote that to get back to Raila is completely off base. But when I said officially, publicly, that I was going to write the book, that was now shortly after the so-called suspension. Remember, that was lifted in December, and I was asked to go back, and I refused. And I think I said it on Jeff Koinange's K24 on the bench. I think a lot of people thought that I was just blowing hot and cold. A lot of Kenyans are used to that kind of rhetoric.
You just speak and you threaten that you're going to do
and
something.
I never do. For anybody who knows me, if you ask any of my friends or any of my colleagues that work with me, I don't threaten anything I cannot do, and I don't promise anything I cannot do, and I live by my word. My word is my bond. I do not say I can do something if I know I don't have the capacity to do so. So the reaction was mixed. And then later, it became delirious. People started attacking me not because of what I said or what they thought I was going to do, attacking me in panic, in desperation, with the hope that if they yelled and shouted me down, that I wouldn't say anything, because they were frightened that whatever I was going to say would destroy Raila Odinga's chances of becoming president.
But
it was not a honest response to the announcement. Because Eric, I'm sorry, let me just 1 more minute. Writing a book is not an easy thing, just like composing music. It's not like you stand and within 2 minutes you've done it. It takes long, hard work. Sometimes you stay up the whole night trying to write a book. So when people think that this is like Otieno Kajwang speaking at a funeral, it isn't that.
This is something that you sat and you premeditated and you put a lot of work into it.
Yes, and you research.
And the result of it has rattled the snakes. And I've got to ask you, since then, don't you have fear? Don't you have fear for your life, your security,
I don't want
prosecution?
No, please. First of all, you're talking to a lawyer. And I know people will accuse me saying, he's a boastful or whatever. No, I'm a good lawyer. I want to say I'm a good lawyer, and I want somebody to come and test it, because I've earned a living, and I've had lots of clients abroad, not here, where you cannot bribe a judge, you cannot bribe a prosecutor. I made an excellent, prosperous living there, successfully litigating cases. I love it. I thrive in it. I like the disputes. I like to be able to go there and prove my case. So I'm waiting. In fact, I encourage them to rush to court so that I can teach them some law and I can teach them some litigation. So if that's what they want, that's fine. Now, as to the criminality, because if somebody is asking you, don't you fear a criminal can kill you? Well, Eric, coming from this studio today, you could be killed by a criminal. There is nobody who is safe.
And yet I haven't written a book.
And yet you haven't written a book. And there are a lot of innocent Kenyans dying on the road out of recklessness and criminal, corruption of planners and engineers and then reckless drivers. And then there are others that are dying from cocaine imported here by politicians and leaders. So that's life.
That's what it is.
That's just life.
You are Miguna the Fearless Man. In fact, reading very many chapters of your book, actually, you start by giving us an insight into who you are.
Yes.
Telling us about your tender young years in school, how you left this country, went into exile in Canada, how you guys up there in Canada were forming together, and you're forming an association that you're calling what? A democracy?
Committee for Democracy in Kenya.
The
and
Committee
I
for Democracy
coordinated
in
it.
Kenya.
Yes.
And you are right there at the top of it. You're just a firebrand, Miguna.
That's not a firebrand. I'm a responsible citizen. When you see injustice, any injustice against children, against women, against the disabled, against the underprivileged and the marginalized, against the poor, any reasonable citizen should consider it a civic duty to take a stand. Because if you don't take a stand, you are supporting the status quo. The status quo of oppression, the status quo of exploitation, the status quo of misgovernance and injustice. And I made a decision when I was growing up, seeing my mother suffer, seeing my mother struggle with me, seeing my mother go without the basic necessities of life to see me go through school, that I would never tolerate those circumstances that let my mother suffer. I'm not going to let that legacy of my mother down. I promised my mother, I promised myself, and I promised God that I would stand for the truth and righteousness. And that's all I'm trying to do. If somebody has a problem with that, it is their problem, not mine. And really, I can't deal with their problems.
So you stand for truth and righteousness and justice.
Yes.
And that's, I assume, this is what one of the things that gravitated you towards supporting the Raila Odinga presidency.
Yes, and
Right,
if you
in
read my book
2007.
and you read the declaration, and I think a lot of people are doing a great injustice to their education. When they start reading a book, they don't even read the preface.
Yeah, we're
Now,
going to
read-
that at the end.
Yeah, if you read the declaration, that is where Miguna tells you where he's coming from and why he's writing this book. And beyond that, you shouldn't ask the question. But now, you're saying, yes, I did. When I started working with and for Raila Odinga, I truly believed in him. Completely. I trusted him. I believed that he was the best candidate at the time that could turn this country around. I believe that he stood honestly against corruption, against tribalism, against nepotism, against injustice, against dictatorship. I believed in him because of his record. I believed in him because of the rhetoric. Now, at the time, and you have to understand, like anybody else, when you're starting a relationship, you would not know the contradictions. You would not know which contradictions will become unresolvable and which ones would be resolved. You would not know how intractable some of the challenges some of these people you work with or for have or not. So you start in good faith and you say, look, I believe in these things I've spoken about, in constitutionalism, the rule of law, respect for human rights, freedoms that we've fought and aspired for. And then you look at the environment and you see certain candidates that represented this legacy of perpetuation of the culture of impunity. And then one candidate that would represent the new dawn. So someone like me would choose the person who represents the new dawn. And at the time, I believed it was Raila Odinga. That is why I worked with him. But then, coming closer now, you see, when you watch a man, cleaning his compound, or you look at the beautiful home, you don't know what happens in that home. Maybe this man is an ogre inside his home. Maybe even eats funny things in his home. Maybe he beats his wife and brutalizes his children. But you wouldn't know. Maybe the man is a thief or a robber. And the things that you're seeing nice are as a result of this man's escapades, criminal escapades. Yep. Until you get to that home and live there and every day be able to experience what goes on around this man, you wouldn't know all these things that I'm talking about. So I was then a member of the family.
Right.
We worked together, we ate together, we traveled together, we thought together, we strategized together, we did things together. And it is when, over a period of time, I realized this guy is phony.
At this point, however, when you're coming now to join the campaign team,
yes,
you saw the people who were around Raila Odinga, not just Raila Odinga himself. Well, Raila Odinga stood for what you thought were the ideals that you stand for at the same time. But the people around him, were you convinced that they were also going into this with the same mindset as yours? Or
that's a good question, Eric. And I want the country to be to open up their ears. People have to understand that I started working with Raila Odinga when I was still in Canada. So physically, I was not here. And I left this country in December 1987, when a lot of people who are now working with Raila Odinga, people like Karoli, was 1 year behind me in university, were just students. They were just boys. So when you come back, you really don't know these people. You don't work with them. And really nobody, when you're introduced to them, nobody will say I'm a thief. I'm corrupt. I worked with YK92. No, they wouldn't tell you that. They would give you glowing tributes of what they've been doing. And because you find them working with Raila Odinga, whom you trust and you respect and you hold up in a pedestal, because to you he represents freedom and liberation, and he went to jail for 9 years or 8 years, you see, you take it on good faith. You take it that, look, Raila Odinga tapped on me to help him. Maybe it is the same way he tapped on so-and-so to help him.
Same way.
So you say, let's work together. You don't know. You don't start by misjudging anybody. That's that's the way I deal with people.
Yeah.
I meet them, and out of my interactions with them, out of my encounters, I form an opinion. Unfortunately, I soon learned, just talking to people around, that Raila had around him the worst snakes in the country. So I asked myself, I started actually asking myself, and when you read the book, you will find encounters where I am talking with Professor Yugi or others. But what is going on? You will find, for example, and I'm not reproducing some of this information because this is not the time, it's not in the book. Email after email between me and Sarah Eltakin, between me and Professor Yugi, between me and a friend of mine called Adongo Gony, between me and other people. We are saying, look, is Raila gone completely? No, I was asking them. Really, I mean, I got more than I bargained for. This is not the man that I joined in 2006 when we were fighting Kalonzo. To me, it looks worse than Kalonzo, because Kalonzo is phony, and you can all see it. Raila pretends to be something else, and he's phonier than Kalonzo. So I say, no, this is a dangerous man, because a man who can delude you, who can lead you into a trap, thinking that you need to carry him up to State House, and then he could kill you there.
Right after you've delivered him to State House.
And that's what he tried to do to me.
Right. You describe the Raila Odinga, let's just call it the Raila Odinga regime.
Yes.
Right here. You say it was funny. You're saying he's not trustworthy. You're saying it's chaotic in there. The
Completely
people surrounding
dysfunctional.
completely there. Those are the words. The completely dysfunctional system.
Yes.
Inside there.
Yes.
Yet you're one of the people who actually, you even describe yourself as the right-hand man.
Yes.
What did you try to do to bring order into it?
Eric, you're a very sharp young man, and you said that you've read several chapters in my book. You would have to be honest with your readers and say, I recount that in my book. You see, a lot of your readers have not read my book.
True.
They don't have a copy.
True.
I wish they can have a copy of 588 pages, where page after page, I tell you what I did. I tell you what I did during the constitutional review process that Raila completely failed us on, as ODM and the progressive forces. I told you what we did during the ICC when we were trying now to sort out the PEV. I told you what we did in terms of ODM's agenda, even in Parliament. I told you what we did in terms of trying to make Raila bring some order in his office, in terms of cleaning up his office.
There's one instance where you mentioned...
Let me just say this.
Yes.
So, and there are many instances that I don't reproduce because, remember, to publish a book is very expensive. No publisher is going to allow you to publish 1,000 pages because it is too expensive. So they will tell you, look, Miguna, we can do 600, but please, we cannot do more anymore. So some of these things you just have to exclude. But I did. I met with Raila repeatedly. I wrote to Raila repeatedly.
Yep.
And that's why I welcomed them. I told them, bring it on. When they bring it on, everything will be on the table.
You
and
will
I have
respond.
everything.
You will respond to
I
it.
have documents.
There's a part where you actually say that you met with the Prime Minister at the Lillian Towers.
Yes.
In the company of two cabinet ministers, and then Karolio Mondi also came, as you say, later, and he hadn't been invited to your knowledge. But and one of the things that you're saying is, let's have a way in which you have structured communication. You're calling them the Prime Minister's circular, in which the Prime Minister now communicates with people formally.
Communicates within government. You see, the Prime Minister's mandate under the Constitution is to coordinate and supervise the execution. You know, this one is never said. We normally say supervise and coordinate government. It is not that.
It's the execution.
The execution of functions of government, including ministries, which means that before anything is done, the Prime Minister should be able to know who is doing what when, and has it been done. And he's supposed to be the one that logistically bring all these strands together for that execution. He has failed. I mean, because...
He doesn't do that.
Well, he doesn't. The other day, he's saying so-and-so should be arrested. He's pleading like a villager, like any other councillor. He talks as if this is not his government, and yet it is his role constitutionally to do these things. So what I'm saying is this. I was telling the Prime Minister, as his advisor that should be making him effective in executing his functions, that the best way you do this, because I studied political science before I went to law school, is look, I've studied the politics of bureaucracy, how it works. I got a first-class degree in politics. So I said, look, to do this, you need to have an instrument or instruments through which you communicate with the bureaucracy. A Prime Minister cannot call a baraza every week to talk to workers.
Dish out orders.
So you can only do it through instruments. In the United States, they do it through presidential decrees or executive orders. You sign an order and then it cascades down. They implement it. And there are people who are supposed to monitor how that is done. And if there is failure, then of course you take responsibility or you take a new path.
So
So Raila has been coordinating and supervising without any instrument whatsoever. I've never seen a government
it's haphazard.
or anybody who is an executive who has absolutely no instrument of executing his mandate. So I said, look, Mudaura is doing it through circulars from the office of the president. You must also do your function through the office of the prime minister, through circulars. They have to be regular, they have to be consistent, people must respect them.
And they have to be concise.
I drafted, on that day, I delivered a circular I had drafted that I had discussed with Orengo, I had discussed with Anyang' Nyong'o, I had discussed with the think tank. They had all approved it. And Raila turned to me and said, no.
It's a Haki has a better one.
No, he says, I can call them. Now, how do you, like you, Mr. Latif, now, you had, probably you had this station. If you do, and you want to deal with your employees here, between writing to them clear instructions so that they can also use it as a reference point.
True.
They can know, number one, I'm not supposed to do this, and it reminds them every day. Somebody says, I can call them in. How many meetings will you be having with junior officers?
Is this a trend of micromanaging or is it a hands-off
No.
approach?
He just does not know how to manage.
It's just lack of knowledge of
Raila
management.
cannot manage. Raila knows how to rabble rouse. Raila knows how to go and tell entertaining, kitendawili and all of this. He's an oppositionist politician who has never transformed into an executive.
He's not ready to lead.
You see, when you see President Kibaki, you are seeing an executive, whether you disagree with him or not. I've disagreed with him because of his non-reform credentials. But nobody doubts the fact that he's an executive. When you go to a meeting, you can tell that Kibaki is chairing. When you go to a meeting, it is shambolic with Raila. You don't know who is chairing. People just talk anyhow. And then meetings end as if they have not started. So I said, no, I don't work in that kind of system. You see, fortunately for me, I did all my university education in Canada, where there are systems that work, where people don't call, people don't bribe for things to be done. They are done the way they're supposed to be done, by the book.
There's a system.
There's a system. That's what I'm used to.
That spoiled you.
They are saying, no, because I want to bring first class, first world systems in Kenya, and I'm being told we have to remain third class. and they're saying the problem is me who is trying to raise them up to first class standard.
You're trying to take them too fast. Let's move to other issues. There's your fellow whistleblower, John Gidongo, a book written about him.
Yes.
It's called It's Our Turn to Eat, in which he talks about the other side of the government and people who are trying to eat. And now you bring out some very serious issues of the way deals were being cut at the office of the Prime Minister. Now, number one, you are not really in the office of the Prime Minister. You are actually, but physically, I
was in the office of the Prime Minister.
No, physically, your office was.
Can I ask you?
Was elsewhere.
No. Mr. Latif, you're getting it wrong. You know State House? You know the distance between State House and Harambee House?
Very far. I'm actually not.
No. But just I want to correct you there so that you don't go on a tangent. Mudaura resided in Harambee House, and look how far it was from State House, and he was still working in the office of the the president. You don't have to be physically docile in one place with the leader to work for the leader. Everybody knows ministries are located all over. Anyang' Nyong'o is in community area, but still working under the coalition government. So the physical, geographical location really doesn't matter.
Can I continue?
Yes.
I just wanted to point out the fact that just like Mudaura, you were not basically sitting a door next to Raila Odinga.
No.
But your office was in another building.
No.
Now, you actually talk about deals that were being cut. And in some of them, some of these people would sit in your presence and they talk about the deals that they're cutting. In some instances, some business people would come and approach you and say, you know what, Miguna, we'd like to meet with the Prime Minister. We'd like to meet with some senior government officials. And in these instances, in some of them, you're actually saying you saw like there was a deal that was being cut. You don't know whether the deal was cut, but the resultant, the resultant wealth is clearly showing that there was some. What I want to ask is, weren't you ever offered? If I sit here and I'm eating huge chunk of chicken, and I'm here with my friend, co-worker Miguna, I mean, I'm gonna throw you a bone.
No, I was never offered, and I think they know they could not offer. But let me tell you how these things were happening and how I got to know these things. Some of them, because the nature of my work, I would meet the Prime Minister very regularly, formally and informally. Sometimes he would call me to his home, even over the weekend. Sometimes I would want to go and see him over the weekend at home.
Yeah.
Sometimes I met him in clubs, members clubs.
Yeah.
Sometimes I met him in hotels. Sometimes he told me to accompany him to a political rally or a function, a funeral, or like in the case where I was the only one who went with him to inaugurate the Abadeas with the president.
Yeah.
It was just me, him. It was almost like the Ochilo and Saitoti situation. He called me one day and said, Nyanyando, can you take me to Abadea? The president is going there and I would like to go with you. So it was just me, him, one bodyguard, and a pilot in a helicopter. And we flew there and came back. Now, so these were some of the scenarios. Some of the scenarios is I go to meet with him, sometimes because the civil society or a diplomat or whatever wants to meet with him and he wants me to sit in the meeting, or I'm the one who is facilitating the meeting, or there is a strategy to be discussed, I've prepared a document. And so what I would do, usually, because at the time I thought this guy was my friend, Karolo Mondi, I would sit in Karoli's office. Karoli's office is next to the Prime Minister's office, actually closer to the Prime Minister's office than because I got along with Karoli more than I got along with Isaacia. I would sit in Karoli's office. Whether Karoli was meeting somebody else or whatever, I just sat there. So people would be talking, but I just keep quiet. I read my newspaper or I wait for my meeting. I mean, we were working together, right? Karoli did not feel that he had to hide anything from me.
Right.
So if there was another so-called advisor, there is this guy, Ahmed Kassam in South Africa, who would come often and they would sit there and meet. They would talk as if I'm not there. You see, these people knew.
Weren't you ever interested?
Just wait. No, these people know me, my friend. They know me so well. They know I'm not interested. They talk as if I'm just a piece of furniture. Because I don't say anything, and I don't say I'm interested, and they know that they cannot tell me to join them, so they just talk and leave.
So there's an instance where I know very well that Miguna will never partake of this deal. But he'll also not...
Yeah. And let me tell you why they will
He'll not
think,
demand a cut.
No, and he will not reveal. You know why? Because I believed in Raila more than they did. I wanted Raila to be president with a passion. I went there on top of transformation of society. I wanted Raila president.
Right.
These people went to make deals and make money. That was not my agenda. So they were executing their agenda. They were making money, which is what brought them there.
And you were sticking to yours.
And they didn't care, really, whether Raila was prime minister or not. They just had a certain set of amounts of money they had to make. And they were pursuing that. I was pursuing the agenda of taking Raila Odinga to State House. Okay. They knew that. So they didn't bother with my agenda. I didn't bother with their agenda.
And you never got a shilling?
No, not a shilling.
Not one?
If I did, I would be in court now. Under the circumstances, my friend.
Those you claim did are not in court.
No, they are not in court because they are still in office and because they are coddled by the corrupt. I am not coddled by the corrupt. I left the office and I've been criticizing since day one. You think that if they had evidence to take me to court, they would think twice?
You'd have like 100 cases in court right now.
But they know Miguna has not taken a cent, not a 100 cent.
Lucky man. Let's talk about the post-election violence. In some parts of this book, and even at the launch yesterday, you mentioned being privy to a strategy called the 41 against 1.
Privy, yes.
And you also mentioned that you actually said you could haul very many leaders to The Hague if
I said yes.
If you did that.
Yes.
So what do you know about post-election violence in Kenya?
No. Some of the things I will not tell you. Okay? But some of the things I will tell you.
Tell me what you can.
This is not about post-election violence. I know that elections were stolen. I know that as a result of the stolen election, people rose up.
Were they stolen by one side or two sides?
Well. The majority of Kenyans wanted change. I still believe that. And they voted against President Kibaki. As a result, when they saw, whether perceived or not, that the elections were clearly mismanaged and that Raila was denied the presidency, they rose up. And as a result, there was a confrontation between the security forces and the people. A lot of people were killed. ODM fought back. Now, it is the details of ODM's fighting back that I have not disclosed, which I told them that if you want, my friend, come on, baby. You understand? Like, I know what you did.
Right
there
here.
are things you did. And I'm saying, look, I've been so lenient to you. I did not go into the details of what I know. I dealt with the superficial things that we know as Kenyans.
You
that
just
we thought
scratched the surface.
Because also, I'm a responsible man. We want reconciliation and cohesion in the country after the post-election violence. People are just going into another election. I don't want anybody to blame me for another post-election violence.
True.
You see, talking recklessly is
help.
also not helpful. So I told them, I know what to say when, and I'm going to be very careful what I do. But please don't provoke me. Don't push me. Okay? And don't threaten me. I am telling them. I've shot a warning shot in the air. I've told them. Now, if you want to aim at me, I shall do the same. And you will not like it.
And I'm sure
because between me and them, they know I'm innocent, and they know some of them are guilty.
They're guilty.
So, and they know I know. And my friend, I am credible. If I stand in a court of law, I will be believed.
More than they will.
Of course.
Now tell me, what can you tell us about the 41 versus 1 tribe strategy?
No, I think everybody knows what 41 against 1 was.
When was it devised?
think
Was
you
it
know.
devised in 2006 or 2005 after the referendum? Or
I think they devised it in 2007. When I saw it, it was 2007. I think it was 2007. The document I have is 2007.
right?
And I was aghast. I was actually shocked. It is in the book. And I told them, look, you can't win an election like that. They told me that's how we're going to win this election.
And they almost did.
I think they did.
So it worked.
Well, no, you can't say that, because you really can't say that's all that won people an election. I think Kibaki lost the election through mismanagement. I think Kibaki did, and I think everybody recognizes that he tried to do a lot about the economic development of the country. But he failed in his political policies. He failed in national cohesion. He failed in dealing with tribalism. He failed in reining in corruption.
Yeah.
As a result, there was too much, people now do not want to remember what you have done positive. So they go for what you've done negative. And really, why he was elected in 2002 was to deal with tribalism and corruption. And when he failed that, he lost the country. So it is not just, it is not correct to say it is only 41 against 1 that
helped.
That helped. It was other factors. He also did not help himself.
Was the 41 against 1 just, a way of saying let's whip up the emotions of the 41 against the 1?
Essentially, this is what it was, right? Somebody stands up and says,
yeah,
the only way we are going to win this election now, and that will tie into what you are saying, which I don't subscribe to, is to turn Kenyans against the Kikuyu. That was stated quite openly. Do you understand?
Directly,
Directly,
right,
in my presence, is to turn Kenyans against the Kikuyu.
emotionally or violently.
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, you turn people. How do you turn people against anybody? You turn people through propaganda. You turn people through misinformation. You turn people through all kinds of strategies. You can't do it violently, because to get to violence, you have to build up. They were not really planning violence. They were planning to win an election through a propaganda strategy. And I told them that's not something I believe in. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I've always been. I don't even believe it. I believe in Africa.
Yeah.
So to reduce me to this
tribe.
little thing of yours, provincial politics, when I live in Canada, and the time I was living in Canada, and I just came back to be introduced to the strategy team because I was helping Raila.
Yeah.
And he told me, can you go in, sit in there, hear what they are saying, and then tell me what you think. Raila was not in the meeting. So when I met with him for lunch at Nairobi Club, I told him, my goodness, I've told those people that I don't think they're up to what this thing requires. They're saying things I can't believe. And then after that, I introduced Raila to Atsango. I brought Atsango to the strategy team at the time, Atsango Chesoni, and left So that, because I respected Asango, I thought that she was very progressive. They never called Asango to any meeting.
That was it.
This was 2007. I realized these are a bunch of jokers, but they proceeded.
Did you foresee the NSIS when the public bit that when they appeared before the work? They said they had presented two scenarios.
Are you taping this thing because you want to use it for any other reason?
No.
Okay, fine.
This is not for any other reason. You have my word on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Unless somebody else picks it up.
Well, no, they can't pick it up without my consent. But
very well. Now, the NSIS had presented two scenarios. And in both scenarios, whether Kibaki wins, whether Raila wins, there was likelihood of violence.
No, they were wrong.
Had you foreseen any kind of violence yourself as a strategist for Raila Odinga's campaign?
To tell you the truth, I did not foresee civilian violence. What I thought could have happened is Kibaki using the security forces to suppress dissent and execute a civilian coup, which many thought were remote. But I thought it was possible that it could happen. When the NSIS, and I've not seen the report, but I heard that they had a report, said that they did not distinguish, I don't know if they did, whether the violence as a result of a Raila win would come from what. Because I don't think, this is what I don't think that there was enough ethnic mobilization at the time that could have been used in that manner. I didn't think so. I didn't think that if Raila won, the Kikuyu would have armed themselves as a community to fight against the Luo, for example.
Yeah.
And I didn't think, and I don't think this thing happened, that if Kibaki won fairly and freely, that the Luo would have been mobilized and armed to fight the Kikuyu. I don't think so. I didn't see that one. You understand?
Yeah.
But following what happened, people did mobilize. So that's why I'm saying I think it is a result of what happened. Because it is undeniable that the Nandi warriors were mobilized. I think you would have to be living in planet Mars
to
say
that.
They were not.
Right. And
because you can't say, I'll give you an example. Because I saw some clips. And I looked at it and I said, this cannot just happen. People cannot be mobilized to go and train. And they have trainers. And they have supplies. And when they are coming out of their training because they graduate, they have a formation, like a military formation.
Yep.
And when they approach the police, they approach them like two regular formations.
Yeah.
Contemporary military formations. Yeah. They kneel down with their arrows, they aim in the same way.
And they fire.
And they retreat in a specific way. When they burn in a strategic manner. So you have to ask yourself, you can't just wake up one day and do that. I can't wake up from my home, meet with Latif, go out there to fight our enemies, and be able to coordinate that. So there must have been something that happened that made that happen.
And it must have happened prior to December 30th.
Well, I don't know prior or after. That I can't tell.
Well, the same way you're saying.
No. But I only speak about things I know.
Yeah, just the same way you're saying. Your deduction is that it looks very paramilitary.
But Eric, but let me talk about things I know. Let me just tell you things I know.
Right.
I will not speak about things I don't know. Things I know. The way that the police were armed, the way they were uniformed with different kinds of jungle uniform, the way the AP and GSU and the army were able to be coordinated as if they went for some exercises when they were, that looked premeditated to me.
Okay.
All right? Yeah. The same way I'm saying, now, so whether you say, oh, they just did this to react, or that's really up to you. What I'm saying is that what I saw convinced me that there was some kind of premeditation. So the same way when I saw the Nandi warriors doing this, I said, this looked premeditated. Right. I don't know when. I don't know who, but I know what I saw on this one.
The ODM strategy meetings, now at this point, we're talking about January 2008. You were very active at this point. There's a lot of agitation.
Yes.
And the agitation here is, look, our election has been stolen. Our swearing in has been bungled. Your planned swearing in was sabotaged. It didn't happen. And now here you are, and you're seeing what's happening across the country. And you even acknowledge that what happened in Rift Valley played a very, very big role in convincing.
I think it played a singular role.
It played
in convincing Kibaki to accept.
To sit down
Yes.
into a meeting and into whatever
Yes.
else happened after that.
Yes.
During these strategy meetings, when you're sitting there, are you getting reports of, well, our boys are doing well?
No.
Were you getting any reports?
No. First of all,
were you strategizing? Now we need to move
Mr.
back.
Latif, I'm much more cleverer than that. So you can't get past that. I'm a good lawyer. You're not gonna get past that.
No way.
I am not going to discuss that, and you will never get it through any other way, through backwards, forwards, sideways, because I'm probably smarter than you. So how are you gonna get it?
You
will ask that question 10 times and it will never be answered.
I'm actually hedging on you.
No, you are a very smart man, and you are trying something I know.
I'm
because
hedging
I
on
do
your
that in
patriotism.
court all the time.
I'm hedging on your patriotism.
No,
here.
you are not going to answer. I'm not going to answer that question. Don't get onto my patriotism.
All
I'm
right.
not a foolish, stupid man.
All right.
Yeah.
That one you will not answer.
That one I will not answer.
We will read the book. We will make deductions.
You
of
will
what
make
you
deductions
know and what you do not know.
Yes.
You talk about. Let's come back to the inner circle, Raila's courtyard, and it seems like you're the only good guy there.
I didn't say that.
It seems like.
No, I never said that.
It seems like.
No, there are a lot of people. There are a lot of good people that are there. Salim Lon is there. Edward Oyugi is there. Sylvester Kasuku is there. Sarah Eldakin is there. Kibisu Kabatezi is there. There are a lot of good people there. And I mention them in the book.
Right.
But people choose not to read that, and yet it is all in the book.
You see, none of the other people that you've mentioned, apart from Kasuku, is actually a permanent in the office.
No. But you know, Latif, I don't know your working background. In politics, some of the most powerful people do not work formally. Some of the most powerful people you don't even see. You don't even hear. You've never read their bylines in the newspapers, and you'll never see their photos on TV. So don't talk to me about formal. That doesn't work in politics. If you go to the Kibaki cabinet or you go to the Kibaki administration, some of the people that ultimately make decisions when Kibaki announces something, you will find are faceless. So I'm more sophisticated than that.
So there are very many faceless people. Some of them you've not even mentioned here.
Some of them I've not even mentioned.
But the ones that have face.
And those are the ones that I've given.
The ones that have face, and you've really talked about them. It seems you did not get off well from the very beginning.
No, that's not true. All these people I mentioned just now are all my friends. Even up.
So as you say, he has his weaknesses. And the best way to deal with your weaknesses is to surround yourself with
competent people with integrity who can help you deal with those weaknesses.
And among them is those that you've mentioned: Miguna, Salim
Sylvester
Lon,
Kasuku, Salim Lon, all those.
Sarah
yes.
Eldakin.
But he never did formally. These people never worked for Raila now formally in the Prime Minister's office, unfortunately. The strategy team was disbanded, and Raila forgot about them as soon as he became Prime Minister.
Do you think that's
why
he
one
went
of my
wrong?
beefs. That was deliberate, because Raila knew that he was getting here to eat, and he didn't want people who would prick his conscience. So he probably thought Miguna has come from abroad, is very passionate about certain things, so passionate that he will probably not even see what is going on. Maybe he's too naive, he's never worked here, he's new to Kenya. By the time he realizes what is going on, we kick him out like they did.
You realize a bit too late.
Too late? But actually I don't blame myself. I'm not sorry for that. Because then how would I have known what I know? How would Kenyans? No, it is a good thing, because now Kenyans can read about what I encountered.
You say Raila Odinga is not ready to become president of Kenya.
Raila Odinga cannot become president of Kenya. Raila Odinga is a tragedy waiting to happen. Raila Odinga would be the wrong thing to become president of Kenya. There is no way I can support Raila Odinga for president of Kenya. He does not mean well for the country.
If I take you back to 2005, at that point when you were really all along, throughout your life, even your working life in Canada, you really were passionate about Kenya. And you wanted Kenya
throughout.
Even up to now, I believe,
Africa.
right? Up to now, you still want Kenya to have a good leader, to move in a certain direction which you think is the ideal direction.
Correct.
Now, the one person that you thought was Moses, turns out he's not Moses.
Actually, I did not.
Do we have a Moses in waiting?
I did not think of Raila in terms of biblical terms. I'm not like that. I don't think of leaders in biblical terms. I'm much more realistic and practical than that. I don't believe in myths. I don't believe in this kind of heroes. No, I believe that we do these things collectively. And if you do them collectively and are focused and disciplined, you will get over the hump. It's not one person. It's not Raila Odinga. It's us. The reason why I got disappointed is that Raila now turned this into him. He turned this into a religion. He wanted to be a deity. We had now to worship him. So everybody becomes a sycophant. Miguna's DNA is violently opposed to sycophancy. Even people who are criticizing me, if they were honest, they would look at my articles, even the ones I wrote. I would discuss Kalonzo on a certain issue, not necessarily in relation to Raila, just Kalonzo. I would go to Uhuru and just deal with Uhuru without mentioning Raila. If you read my articles very carefully. And then I would talk about corruption and the culture of impunity many times without mentioning Raila. So people just thought that I was praising Raila. But give me one article other than 2 rights of replies.
Yeah.
And I wrote hundreds of them. In fact, I wrote thousands of them over the years. And you will just find, I'm waiting for any journalist to come and present one article where it is just praise. You will never find it. And then you will find that since I joined the government, the things I was writing were as much against Raila's tendencies of corruption than they were against, as much as they were against Kibaki's. So I'm fair game when it comes to things like this.
Who's a better person right now?
That one I refuse to say. The reason why I do that, maybe I should, but the reason why I do that is I believe in the Chinese saying that if you want to feed a man, you teach him how to fish. You don't fish for him. You don't give him fish. Because once he knows how to fish, he will be able to sustain himself for good. So I am here to enlighten people. I am here for us to educate each other. I am here to shed light. I am here to interrogate. I am here to debate. And out of that, Kenyans should be able to use that to decide who is best for the next presidency of the Republic of Kenya.
Does Miguna know for himself who's best?
Out of the people who have declared, I know, but it is not the right time to say. And I'm not saying that that person is an angel. I'm simply saying I know who I would prefer, but I'm not ready to say it now.
But you know who you'll vote for?
I know who I'd vote for, of course, if he ends up being at the ballot, on the ballot. Sometimes you also may not end up on the ballot, right? But if he ends up being on the ballot, I'll vote for him.
The journey might end too early.
The journey may end too early. Maybe the person decides to throw in a towel. Maybe they decide to support somebody else. I don't know. Maybe another person emerges. Remember, Obama came late and won. So you never really know.
What are your plans after this? Now that we have the one book, Peeling Back the Mask, and you were saying that you still have very many diaries, which...
I just gave an example.
At some point, you could write more.
Yeah, yesterday I gave an example. I told them that Alistair Campbell, the former press secretary of Tony Blair, has produced 4 to 5 volumes of his diaries. I told them, I have diaries. I've not even produced that, and yet these people are diarying already. Yet in Britain, they are not diarying about Alistair Campbell's diaries. They welcome them, because they're more interested in knowing what happens behind the curtains. They want to know so that they can improve their system. Here, I'm being told, let's drive blindfolded. We want to crash. You are stopping us from crashing, therefore you are a traitor. And I'm saying, no, I'm not dying with you.
You're out of the bus.
I'm not a suicidal man. I'm not going to drive blindfolded.
So what next for Miguna?
Miguna, well, of course, when you produce a book like this, you have to promote it. And I am, this coming week, going on a worldwide tour to promote my book fast. Make sure that everybody reads it globally, not just in Kenya. And then I intend to write 2 more books. We pick it up from there. I'm also practicing law. I'm consulting. I have to feed my family.
True. Did you plan to go back to Canada?
No.
Or are you here now for good?
I'm a Kenyan.
You're here now for good?
I'm not running from anything. I'm meeting these guys head on.
And you're prepared?
Oh, well prepared, as you can see.
Calm, baby, calm. Thank you very much, Miguna, for coming to Talk 360 today, and all the best with your book. And of course, as you travel across the globe, marketing this book and telling people why they need to read this book. All the best with that. And when you come back here, and let's talk about the progress and how many court cases you'll find when you come back here.
Oh, my friend.
When you come back to
Don't
Kenya,
get
how many court
I
cases?
would welcome them.
And
they would help me sell a lot of books.
Actually, I've got to tell you this before we end. The cabinet minister actually today said that you cannot afford the kind of court cases that he'll bring up against you.
The cabinet minister, the one who is disbarred, how can he bring a case? He has no credibility. He can't stand up in court and testify to anything. He was disbarred. He has no credibility in Kenya. He's not somebody who can stand up and testify. A judge will dismiss his testimony right out of hand based on his credibility dent. Is that a man that can talk to me? Let them bring another one.
Can you afford?
No. Let them bring another one. You see, affording is the intellect. It's not money. I can fight all of them because I have the ability.
And you'll win all.
You don't need the money. You need the talent, the capability, and the time. And I have it.
And you said you're one of the sharpest lawyers in Kenya.
Well, I think I am. Otieno Kajwang is not at my rank. I don't debate with the losers. And I want him to hear this. I don't debate with losers.
Parting shot. That's a good one. Thank you very much. We're going to have a good week ahead. My name is Eric Latif. Thank you for tuning in to Talk 360 today. Make sure that you get yourself a copy of this book. Actually, Miguna, you can tell people where they can get the book from and how much it's going for.
The book is going for 3,200. They can get it from Bookstore, Prestige, and some other bookstores in Nairobi. They can also get it from Amazon.com. They can get it from Barnes Noble. And I think my publisher will be trying to get it to distributors across the globe.
Good. It was good that you ended up saying that you're sharper than everybody else, not just
No,
Eric.
I did not say everybody else. I said I'm sharper than Otieno Kajwang. Of course, he's a loser.
Have a good week, Miguna.